are the sounds of heritage.
Mrs. Mihalek, we have been talking to your husband. He has told us the story of how you first came here, the problems he had as a farmer, but now he would like to hear from you about the problems of housekeeping you had and your problems in raising children.
Suznad, či si rada prišla do Wisconsin. Rada si, že si prišla do Wisconsin, či si musela prísť?
Jak mám povedať to? No musela som prísť, keď si ty išol.
Yeah. She had to come and follow her husband. She didn't like it exactly, but she had to follow her husband.
The State Historical Society presents The Sounds of Heritage, a series of recorded half-hour programs depicting the story and the history of the nationality groups that have settled in our state. These programs offer new insights into the settlement and development of Wisconsin.
First came the French, next the English, then the Germans, Norwegians, Irish, and Welsh, each group making a special contribution to the history and development of our state. By 1850, there were 12 different nationality groups in Wisconsin. By 1900, 24. And today there are over 50 different stories to tell.
Listen now to the story of the Slovak people of Wisconsin.
Bohemian, Moravian, and Slovak. These are the men with the old country faces. They had the look of long boat trips and the dream of Wisconsin fields. The farmer came from what is now Czechoslovakia. At nighttime he came, crossing the borders. In the high sun-up he kept to the ditchways and sucked at the damp grasses. The planting man, seeding a loam soil called America. In his runaway dreams before the raw mornings he followed the big plow horses for miles and miles. The border guards, smoking in the white dust around the checkpoints. Beyond their boots, the new countries began. The man hit for the ravines and the creek beds, waiting. The man held his breath, and the red morning sun came climbing over Europe, and the man thought a little bit in Bohemian. There were two ashlands, Europe and a little town in northern Wisconsin.
Mr. Mihalek, you were an early settler of this area of the country?
Yeah, probably one of the earliest one. There was only 2 settlers when I came here. So I was probably here the very first one. That was in 1910.
Well, you came over as an individual by yourself, or did you come with a group of other immigrants?
With me and my 3 brothers, 2 brothers and 1 brother-in-law. We decided in Ohio that we should go out farm. So 3 of us came and look at the farms, and of course it wasn't farms, it was just simply a wild land, brush. But we thought it was a good proposition that we could make a farm out of it.
What part of Europe did you come from?
From Czechoslovakia, what they call it now.
And when you left, they called it what?
Hungary. Austro-Hungary.
Austria-Hungary. Well, would that be Bohemia, Moravia, or what?
And Slovakia.
In Slovakia.
Yeah.
That is the third section of what they call Czechoslovakia today, right?
Yeah.
Are there many other Czechoslovaks living in this area?
Well, there was about 100 of us in here, but of course some of them moved back to cities, and some of them spread, and some of them died. But I know there was over 100 people from Czechoslovakia came in here during the 1910 to 1915.
And since that time, there have not been any more immigrants from Czechoslovakia come in here?
No. Oh, maybe yes. A few of them here and there still coming.
My father walked through this land before we were born. The dung of horses dried up and crusting on his boots. The long, skinny fields pocked face with the glacier rocks. They were mostly farmers from the old country, the crucifixes on the walls, the icons in the kitchens, their wives baking up the black bread, big as cows, the men waiting to eat. Secretly, they prayed for the children to be boys. This country can break through a man like the rivers break through stones. It is worse for a woman. She is not so strong to start with in her body. Her back goes first, and then her legs, and then it is finished.
The old farmers, some of them. 3 and 4 wives after the first time. The old wife buried, a man must seek for another bride, heavy in the hips and a hard worker. There was always a child needed, and the crops in, and then the harvestings. The farmers fighting this country with the bodies of their women. The plow horses too weak to pull, the unpainted boxes under the fenced-off woods. The woman at night time and her husband next to her. The long-sleeved underwear of him, and the miles of plowing, and the pull of the great strapped horses. The smell of soil and strength in her nostrils. The Wisconsin woman, prostrate, and the prayer for tomorrow, and the slow sleep coming filled with a few farmer dreams. And you, Andrew Mihalek, what of your dream? Why did you choose the Wisconsin land?
Well, mostly to be independent, to start to farm. I always like to be my own, have my own property.
I will walk slowly in this place. My steppings are part of a master plan, I think, and have been measured out for me much before me. Still, it is better to be on the move a little and not hanging like beef sides in the coal lockers. I am to stay and scan out the skies in the 5 o'clock mornings. There'll be signs of summer, grazing on the fringes and munching in green grasses like the milch cows. Winter is a bad time in the pasture lands. The frost drives deeply. The soil is hard pan. Summer stands in a steel stanchion with its head locked in a dented feed bucket, dreaming cow dreams in the month of December. I should like to leave for the Florida Keys and count the days like conch shells, and not come back at all, even when the home farm is green again, and the snows are running like barn rats back through the culverts. But I must walk slowly in this place. My boots are stiff in this season. I pass the nailed-up pump in back of the sun porch and stamp out my feet. Christmas has come, and it has left a new feed bucket. Also, many, many conch shells, and some coral bits and pieces.
I understand that sometime in the past you have been town chairman.
Yeah. Sure, very third or fourth year after I came, I
Third or fourth year after you came here, you
Yeah,
became town
yeah.
chairman.
Yes.
And how many other groups were there here beside the Czechoslovaks in this town? Were there Finns or others here too?
No, there was, we had double town, or 64 sections. And across the Fish Creek, there was Swedes. And of course we had town organized already, and there was an office, but then when us Czechoslovaks came, we overrode them, so they went and split the town in half. So then they elected me as the chairman.
The early records you kept, were they kept in English or Bohemian, or
Oh, everything went in English, yeah.
everything was in
Of
English?
course, we were talking in Bohemian at the town meetings, but record was made in English.
The fighting men took on this country when it was frontier. Into the wilderness they came, into the fast waters. They worked out the big woods. They paid their way with beaver pelts and then the broadaxes.
The land was strong. The wild country slashing with the trapped claws. The fighting men marked with the clawings. The men in the big woods piling up the bodies. The bullets, the blades, dynamite, and the smell of fires.
The big bone men blasting down to bedrock, hammering their way to the lakeheads. The gougings in the lead mine towns, the road beds pushed north, the tracks. The conquistadors in this country, breaking into the black dirt, crossing all the clay banks. The hands of Slovaks, Swedes, Finns, French upon this land. The hands of the old countrymen upon this land, marking this land and moving on, getting theirs and moving on.
The record of their stay is all in the stumps. The burying fields are full of the old stones. They were here for a time clearing the timber. They knew that they were not timeless. They filled their bellies and their strong boxes. They took on this country, and it was full of strength. They fought it out with fire.
Amen. The school of hard knocks, and the men built from the ground up like pine knots. But as happens in this state of Wisconsin, if the man does not get to the big school at Madison, the big school at Madison eventually gets to the man.
Yeah, it must have been in 1913, because Mr. Sammer asked us to bring our animals to fair that we're going to have for education. So sure, my wife had a baby, so I couldn't very well go there. But about noon, I asked my wife, could I go there? She said, go ahead, I'm feeling pretty good. So I grabbed the calf out in the pasture and took it out there.
And did you win a prize at that time?
What's that?
Did you win a prize at the fair?
Mr. Dogie and Sanborn and other professors, they pull out $1, and each one got $1 a prize. Encourages us to come again, because the money will always stock.
And each one of the three that showed cattle won a prize that year.
Yeah.
Good. And what has been your success at fairs since then?
Oh, the next year, Mr. Sanborn donated $25, and me and one of my neighbors went to Ashland, solicit some money for that fair, certain fair, and we got about $30 or something, so we could start the fair and tell the people we're going to give them so much prize. So they brought, we had about probably 15, 20 head of cattle the second year. And more people from Madison and from around Ashland. And so then next year we had bigger fair again. In about 5 years we had about 100 head of cattle at Moquah here. Of course that went all right, but then you know how the people are, they were yelling, that's why they got the first prize. So he didn't bring it because he didn't have exactly as good cattle as the other one. So I ain't gonna go. They'll then come out. Jealousy like always it is. Especially among the Czechoslovaks. The Czechoslovaks, they claim they are like pigeons. They're good peoples, but bunched together just like pigeons. But when they are together, then they start to fight. So their wings at each other.
The farm fields full of glacier rock. The ice sheet was into this ground like granite. The farmer staring at the broken blades. His father's blood is here, and his son's blood. Men. The men will kill themselves in this country. The young, strong men, more men than you can count, throwing their backs into the boulder land, bracing themselves, and lowering their heads like bulls.
Then you actually learned to farm by farming.
Yes. I was always wondering how I'm gonna, whether I will know how to farm, how to hold a plow, because I never plowed. But I made it. And another thing, I went to every farm school or every farm meeting to learn. Even I was criticized by my neighbor that I'm going too much to schools to listen to the professor. They said, yeah, they are farming from the book, but if they would come out here, they wouldn't do nothing.
But you proved that you were right.
Yeah, I did, and I did improve a lot of things in here. Now, first thing, the first year we was making hay. I just had about 1.5 acres, got it with the scythe, and my neighbor had 1.5 acres. Because he was a very farmer, he cut his hay earlier than me. So, and I heard at the meeting, Mr. Semmer got institute. We call it Farmer Institute that time. He got a man, he's supposed to be the best farmer in the state of Wisconsin. His name was Nordman. And he gave us a speech there how to make hay, good quality of hay. So he said, just cut it and let it lay for about a couple hours and then put it into little piles. Leave it stand there for 4 days, then take it in. I didn't believe that. How can a hay be dried in the piles? But I thought he couldn't. This man couldn't tell us lie, because next time he would come, we would just chase him out of here. But I tried it, and it was all right. Then all the people start to make piles too.
The hand of my husband in mine, worn hard and stone-honed like the hickory axe handle, the ground squirrel skinny and lost and looking for the old year's acorns. The farmer fires the split wood into the field stones, the long frost into our floorboards. My husband calls for his coffee and then one more. The Wisconsin women watching their husbands go. Beyond the barns, the manure spreaders and the cow dung steaming. Behind the great horses, the farmers warm in their guts, and the old year stiffening.
When you first started farming, did you have cattle and horses, or did you have to clear the fields by hand? Clear out the stumps and drag off the rocks. Was that all done by hand, or did you have animal power?
Mostly by hand. Of course, we had horses too. Of course, we put the stumps to the pile and burn it. And of course, the plowing was the hardest job to first plowing, because all the roots was in there. So I always had to come with a whip to get the old plugs moving.
In the deserted schoolyard, the old man stands staring. The steeple of the school church gauntly like the Moquah grave. The voices of the Slovak boys are hidden between these bricks like the small sparrows.
The winds of war have swept them into the faraway shores. The wind has blown away the baseball and the bloody noses and the little girl's hair under the First Communion veils. Into the faraway beaches the Slovak boys were swept, into Anzio, Omaha, Tarawa, and Iwo, and other places with old country names.
The boys were altar boys here. They wore the black cassocks like bags. They were always too big and made the boys trip. They looked like little priests. All the women would be thinking that one day the boys would be real priests and come back to the church and say the first Mass here and pass out the little remembrance holy cards with the picture of Jesus on the front, holding the white lamb and the shepherd's staff.
Well, the first thing, a missionary came here, so we had masses in a private house. Then we had it in a schoolhouse, and then the third year we started to build. So we got a fair size, not very big, but enough room there for the community. And of course the people are very religious, devout from the start.
And what is the name of your church, and where is it?
St. Peter and Paul Church at Moquah, they call it.
And what is the pastor's name, the priest's name?
Florian Heredis.
Are services in Bohemian or in English?
Now mostly in English, because on account the children will understand more in English than in Slovaks. But very first time we had in Slovaks, sermons in Slovaks.
They have planted their blood in these Wisconsin fields. They themselves are planted in these fields. Their sons continue to seed this country. The hands of great men into this soil, working out the old clays and trying very hard to grow things.
First year we had, that was the third year, we had a wedding. So everybody was so happy that we met together and had a music and dance. So then after a while, some neighbors said, let's visit this guy, his birthday is going to be tomorrow. So we started that way. There was about 5, 6 of them met and went surprised him. And that's how the entertainment did start. We had a few drinks there and started to sing. Each one sang his own song, and that's why we started this, and we thought we should form a club for the singing. So that's what we did, start a club.
Did you start any dancing groups? Ever have occasion to have Bohemian dances?
Yes. You know, in Bohemia and Slovakia, every county or village, they got different dances. So each one dance the way they dance in their village. I still started a dance that nobody can learn that dance. They call it Dosha Flika. Of course, some learned it already. But then we had, of course, it was easy for the women to make their old country customs. They could buy a little cloth and they saw it. But it was harder for us men. So we ordered borrowed some from Milwaukee. There's a lot of Czechoslovaks there, and they got their entertainments too.
We are, all of us, the people of a proud land. We are the spirit of a tall pine state that started in 1848 and considerably before. The spirit of Wisconsin speaks in many voices, many words.
Words from the quiet fir woods of the slow north country.
Indian words from the wicky-up shores of Lake Superior, guarding the land of the Grand Portage.
Frenchman fur trapper words carrying in the crucifixes of Père Marquette.
Whitewater words pumping like blood through this ground.
Rawhide words of lumber robbers stealing out the big woods and the little people and leaving only stumps. Piney words of the log rafts and the log rivers, and of a man breed strong as axe handles. And the words of the Winnebago watching the white man bringing new brides to this land.
The women did not all like to come, but they had to follow their husbands. And they knew that all Slovaks get together like pigeons.
The spirit of Wisconsin and the sound of Slovaks. The burnt-out neighbors, and all the following days for the new barn raising, and the weasel up against the chicken wire, the old man reaching down the small rifle and cartridges and going out the back way without a sound. The spirit of Wisconsin, the long snows and the sun strong enough to put out your eyes, and the people still around who were here when it all started. The old settlers who came here when the country and the blood and the dream were all young.
What did you think of America? Were you, did it meet your expectations, or were you disappointed?
Yes, it did. When I came here, I asked my mother, "Are you eating so well?" The very first day. I asked her whether they are eating so well every day. Because in our country, you couldn't eat that well as we did in here.
After the feet of bull moose, the field mice. After the spoor of black bear, the black ants. After the words of men, the old, old eternal sounds. After all, a kind of twilight over this Wisconsin land. Twilight and some cryings in the wilderness. The Slovak man asking only for a decent death. God grant us that, and a few farmer dreams.
You have just heard the story of the Slovak people of Wisconsin, brought to you by the State Historical Society. The Sounds of Heritage is a series of recorded programs devoted to the study of the more than 50 ethnic and nationality groups that make up the population of our state. Production by Myron Curry. Your narrator has been Tom Deteen.